Let's do another one. We remove this one and we focus on the Grafcets. For the Grafcets, we have something similar, but it's not quite the same, of course. Here we have a Grafset sheet. We can also rename it, call it test. And here you see something else. It's about default transition types. We have 3 transition types. And for the moment, I let this default as it is, and we will see later on what it is good for. The Grafset theory works as follows. It's about steps. You have here an initial step and transitions. Here is a simple transition and another step. The theory is between 2 steps, you have always one transition. And even though the transition is something like a fork with several steps behind it, between 2 steps, you have always a transition. If you are done with your fork design, you just unselect that and it's done. Now, it's similar as with the activity diagrams. You can have a fork, you can have a join, like this. You can also click so, for example, and if you click underneath, you exit the fork mode. So, we have seen the default is a tautology. For the transitions, that means they are always true. You can have another default, which is a combination between an event and a condition, or a temporary delay. Okay? You can, at any time, even though your default is a tautology, at any time you can change the content of your transition. By double-clicking on it, you can then select, for example, this one, and now you have a combination between a condition here and an event, which is E up, for example. So you can have a delay. Here you say from step 2, we wait for 1 second. You can choose your unit and of course change the value here. So by default, we propose 1 second. Okay? And the notation is the following. Here you have the variable name t1, and here /2, meaning from step 2, you are waiting for 1 second. Here you can also have something like this. And if you select this and this at the same time, you can move it so, or do something like that. And here, double-clicking on this transition, add another delay, and here you can say from step 4 or 5 or 6. They are all the same, not quite the same, I must say. I would say 6 is the best option because, well, maybe not. Well, let's do it like this. That means here, if I run that, I've got my controls. Here, I just present the delays T1 and T2. T1 is here, T2 here, and EA. So what does it mean? If I want to cross this transition, I have to trigger my E event, E up, and at the same time A should be true. It should be up. So that means A should be up first, and then I get my event E. And that has led to this activation. And 1 second later, it went through here, and those 3 were activated. And as soon as some underlying steps were activated, the previously active steps were deactivated. Now we are waiting for A and E down. So if I click on E down, this one is activated, and 1 second later, all 3 were deactivated and this one activated. So that's the way Grafcets run. Here you can also do some more complex stuff, like, for example, like in the activity diagrams, you can add an event here and add a step behind it. So here you see the default was delay, and as I clicked on my event, automatically the proposed condition was a delay. And here the delay is from step 7, and of course it's not what I want. I want it to be from step 0, meaning from the beginning on it should wait for 1 second and then activate this one. If I do so, I wait for 1 second and this one is activated. Okay. Then I can go further and say this, and maybe that. So if I run now, after 1 second this one is activated, then this one, and then it's all deactivated. What I can do also is, instead of 0, I put C, and maybe here 3 seconds. That means here I'm waiting for 3 seconds cyclically. Every 3 seconds this condition will be triggered. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Of course, instead of doing this, I can put 0 once again and 1 second here, and I can delete that and say I bind from the selection, and here I made also a loop. It's in fact similar. Okay. So here we see the other possibilities Grafcets can offer.